John Adams, second President of the United States. So, Democratic Republicans, their candidates are Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Federalist candidates are John Adams and Thomas Pinckney, and we see the full creation of political parties in this election. So the big issues, Jay's Treaty. You know, the Federalists support it, and they say we had to have this to keep us out of war with Britain. Of course, the Democratic Republicans say no, we did not, and it didn't deal with impressment and what it was supposed to deal with. The French Revolution, of course, Thomas Jefferson thinks that, and Aaron Burr thinks, basically we should be supporting the French citizens fighting for their independence. And of course, Federalists say neutrality is the best way to go because we're not strong enough as a nation. We don't have the military, and it would weaken us economically. So according to the Constitution, the person with the most electoral votes becomes president, and the next highest person becomes vice president. So here's what it looks like. John Adams with 79 electoral votes, Thomas Pinckney with 51, Oliver Ellsworth with 11, Thomas Jefferson had 68, Aaron Burr had 30. So there's your president. Here's the vice president. That would be Thomas Jefferson. So do you guys see a problem? Why is Adams with Jefferson as the vice president a problem? Why would that be a problem? Go back. Think about it. The problem is you have a Federalist president and you have a Democratic Republican vice president. They're probably not going to get along on a lot of issues, and they did not. And you actually have a vice president working against the president in a lot of regards during this administration. So this is a problem that's going to have to be corrected, and it will be corrected. So we're going to get into the Adams administration. And as you see here, France objects to Jay's Treaty. Jay's Treaty equals Britain pays the U.S. for damage to ships. The U.S. pays Britain money that we owed them to their merchants. So this favors the British. And the French say, wait a minute, you guys were supposed to be neutral. Neutrality acts. You're not supposed to help us out, and you're not supposed to help Britain out, but yet now you guys are paying money to one another. So what does France do? They start seizing American ships too, just like the British had. We don't talk about this as much because it's taken care of a little bit earlier than the British problem, but the French start impressing our merchants and sailors as well and making them fight for the French Navy. So, of course, when the French start to do this, the American people say, hey, we should just go fight a war. We should just go fight with Britain, you know, and France. President Adams, he run on a campaign of we will stay neutral, and he does not want us to go to war with any country because we just do not have a military. We do not have a navy, and we do not have an army. So he sends representatives to France to discuss the rights of neutral nations and to say, hey, look, we are not favoring the British. We are not trying to do all this stuff with Britain. We're just trying to maintain neutrality. So what happens is the XYZ Affair. And what this is if you want to meet with the diplomat to the U.S., that would be Diplomat Talleyrand, you had to pay him $250,000, and then you had to lend France $10 million. Once again, remember the Jay's Treaty was all about financial issues and money and stuff. So the French are going to play the same game, but they're going to bribe us. And so Talleyrand, the diplomat to the U.S. that was supposed to meet our envoy in France, did not. His 3 lowly officials did, which in diplomatic terms, this is a slap in the face, and this is saying you're not worthy as a nation. So what happens is we say, we're not paying for you guys to visit your diplomat. We're not paying you guys to visit your diplomat. We're not going to do that. It's not a sixpence. So that leads to this. So when John Adams finds out, because the diplomatic envoy comes back to the U.S., when he finds out that we were bribed for from 3 lowly diplomats, he wants war himself. He is beside himself with anger. But as you see, when Americans find out, they're outraged, and the cry comes up: millions for defense, but not a cent for tribute. Tribute's a bribe. So American people want to go to war. John Adams will hold himself back from asking Congress for war. Adams reported to Congress and called the 3 low officials X, Y, and Z. The name sticks because he reported this to Congress in a session to Congress, joint session to Congress. The name stuck and it became the XYZ Affair. The reason he called them X, Y, and Z is because he didn't want to give them the legitimacy of naming them, because you're naming somebody for a bribe. And he said, I'm not even going to name them. They're just X, Y, and Z. They're the low-ranking officials. So the name sticks, and that's how you get the XYZ Affair. Now, here's what Adams does, and this is what Congress does. Congress does order the building of frigates, which frigates, as you see, are fast-sailing ships with many guns. And in 1798, Congress set up the Navy Department. For 2 years, we waged an undeclared naval war between the U.S. and France. We waged a war with France. This damages Adams' standing in his own party, but his pledge to keep the U.S. out of war, he did. Even though it's an undeclared war, we didn't formally declare war on anybody. So that's how he kind of got around saying I'm going to keep us out of war, and this is how he did it. So there's a 2-year undeclared war on France out of this. So some other things that came out of this would be the ALEIN Sedition Acts. You need to know these. You need to know the XYZ Affair. You need to know the ALEIN Sedition Acts. So as you see, the ALEIN Act, and I think you're gonna read this. Most times you do. The president can force any alien or foreigner thought to be suspicious in this nation to leave this nation. The Naturalization Act, you must live in America for not 5, but 14 years before becoming eligible to become an American citizen. Guys, it's 5 years today. It was 5 years back then, and they upped it. The Alien Enemies Act. If an alien's foreign homeland is at war with the U.S., we could send you back home. In other words, during this undeclared war, we have French people over here, and we were deporting them back to France, even though they didn't want to go back to France, even though they may not have agreed with France or whatever, but because they were foreign born, we sent them back. So the Sedition Act, and you'll read this one as well. Citizens can be fined or jailed if they criticize the U.S. government. Think about what that violates. So, and this, once again, is in a time of an undeclared war. So, it's not even a declared war. So, if you go back, you look at this talks about the Alien Sedition Acts, and you have a video down here that talks about the Alien Sedition Act. So, you can check those videos out. But there, and right here, check out the Presidency of John Adams. That's a video. It's a good one. It's relatively short, about 5 minutes. Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. So not everybody in the U.S. agreed with the Alien Sedition Acts. 2 people who did not agree would be Vice President Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. 2 Virginians. And as you see here, they're going to write these nullification acts, the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. Madison will write the Virginia resolutions. Jefferson will write the Kentucky resolutions. And if you look here, each state had the right to void any federal law because they felt it violated the First Amendment. You need to put a star by that. And keep in mind, this is your vice president writing this. The one in Kentucky. Virginia and Kentucky resolutions claimed the right to null and void federal laws that they said went beyond the powers of the Constitution or central government. This is called interposition. And the reason you have two states with this is because the states are going to work together. They're going to work at the same time to oppose unconstitutional federal acts. Meanwhile, they're going to maintain loyalty to the federal government in every other aspect. They're just going to say these two laws or these laws that are unconstitutional, we're not going to enforce. This became a major election issue in 1800 between the Federalist and the Republican parties. This became a major focus of the election: is can the federal government impose laws that are seen as unconstitutional, and do the states have the right to oppose them and not enforce them? You need to know this because this is going to set up something in 1828 that a vice president is going to write as well. Another vice president is going to write, and so it really damages him as well. But we'll get there. You need to know the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions are very important in U.S. history, in our early history. So we have finished.